can you just give our viewers a definition of what is ADHD, just in case? And when did you discover that this was prevalent in your life?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to read the definition from NHS website, and then I'll talk about how it's affecting my life and how it looks like in the real life. So ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, is a condition that affects people's behavior. People with ADHD can seem restless, may have trouble concentrating, and may act on impulse. That is a very good definition, but what exactly does that mean? Basically, the biggest stereotypes about ADHD is that people have trouble concentrating. I don't necessarily think it's 100% true. The problem is a lot of people have ADHD, they have trouble starting on things. For example, things like doing dishes, working on a project, studying for a test, like the getting started. The best way to describe it is that you're trying to climb over a wall, and every single person has to climb this invisible wall in your head in order to start an activity that you don't want to do. But some people have a higher wall to climb, like for people that have ADHD versus people that don't, they have a lower wall. And so it's kind of this unfortunate disadvantage that people with ADHD have. The way it works in the brain on a very simple level, it's all to do with the dopamine level. Basically, pretend you have a bucket of water and it's constantly pouring. That's the dopamine. For a normal person, if you have an activity to do, it would just pour in and kind of like stay there. Versus a person with ADHD, they have a hole in the bucket and the water constantly flows out. So it's harder to stay motivated and focused for specific activities. That said, for example, if I were to play a video game, it would stimulate my brain so much more. So I would be more focused on the video game versus doing homework for school or doing dishes. So that's kind of the definition of ADHD. There's 3 types of ADHD, which is the first one is hyperactive one. Then there's inattentive, and then there's a mix of both. So for the first type, ADHD is basically you are constantly like, those people who always like are on the go, constantly moving, like tapping their leg all the time. That's like kind of the ADHD is showing like on the outside. Versus ADD, the inattentive type is basically it's all in your mind. And the best way to describe it is like your mind doesn't stop. Like you have 7 thoughts at the same time and your mind is racing. You're constantly restless and tired because your brain never stops. And the third type is kind of a mix of both. And this is what the third type is what I have. Sometimes like it shows on the outside for me, but also mostly it happens in my head. And I have very difficult time starting with things. And also I have a ton of impulsive issues. I learned how to battle it with minimalism. I think minimalism is a wonderful tool for ADHD because I kind of like try to eliminate a bunch of distraction to see like, okay, this is important, I have to do this. But if I have a bunch of distractions, I can't quite focus on the most important things. And that's how I use minimalism in my everyday life to do just everything.